A few months ago, I logged into Google Analytics and I couldn't quite believe it. Traffic for my site had dipped by more than 30%. Now my site earns an income through display advertising and affiliate marketing. So if traffic is down, that means I'm not earning revenue. Was it over? Had Google decided that my site was no longer worth ranking in its search results? In this video, I'm going to explain what I did to turn around this traffic dip and grow my site faster. These strategies are pretty easy to implement. So first up, I headed over to Google Search Central. I read an article by the Google search team that basically explains a good site these days demonstrates experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So I made a number of changes to address one of these ranking or search factors. First up, I looked at each one of the articles on my site and I made sure they were attributed to a real-world human writer. You see, if you look at any big media organization or publication, you'll find that articles on those sites have bios. So I headed over to Publish Press and I installed their author bio plugin. And this presented a little box at the bottom of each one of my articles with details about the author that links through to their social profiles. And you can even upload a snazzy photograph of the writer in question. It's a great way of saying to readers that a human wrote this and not AI. And I also headed over to the About page and I updated all of the contents on the About page to describe what the site is about, who it's for, and the team of writers who work on the content on the site. But I wasn't done. I also headed over to the contact page. I made sure my contact form worked and I added a phone number and address as well. And I also headed over to Google My Business to make sure that all of these details were present there too. In other words, I wanted Google to recognize that my site is a legitimate or real business. Now on the site, you'll find lots of reviews and articles about the latest writing apps and software. So I went through the reviews to make sure that they all looked credible. In some cases, this meant going back to the reviewer in question and asking them to take photographs or to take screenshots of them using the writing app and adding it to the article. And in other cases, it meant recording YouTube videos just like this one of me using or talking about the writing app, and then I embedded it in the article in question. In other words, I wanted to create supporting multimedia content so that it would be better than a standard article about the app or service. Now I publish dozens of articles each week. It's easy to publish 1 or 2 articles and make sure your SEO is good. But when you're publishing dozens of articles, sometimes things can go amiss. So I went back through old articles which had decreased in traffic. And with the help of an editor, I reviewed the on-page SEO. Basically, I made sure that each post had a primary keyword that was mentioned in the headline, in the URL, and also in the introduction. And I made sure that variations of this keyword were mentioned several times throughout the article. Now, if you need help coming up with the primary keyword for your article in question, you can use a keyword research tool, or you can even take things one step further and use a content optimization tool. Once I'd reviewed all of these articles, I made sure that they included relevant external links, so the site will be seen as a helpful resource. But then I encountered another problem. You see, because I was publishing articles at scale, I had lots of articles which had no internal links, posts that were basically orphans. And this meant when Googlebot came along to crawl my site, it sometimes couldn't find these articles. So I headed over to Link Whisper, which is a WordPress plugin, and I installed it on my site. And I was able to run a link report on my site and find all of these orphaned posts. And then using this plugin, I was able to add a lot of internal links quickly and easily. Now I was surprised by the amount of orphaned posts on my site. And although Link Whisper was fast and easy to use, the process was still taking me a good bit of time. So I documented exactly how to run a link report like this and how to add internal links using video recording software Loom. And then I sent this video to a virtual assistant who was able to add these internal links for me. And this freed me up to move on to the next item on my list for improving traffic to the site. You see, because I published lots of different articles over the years, some of my content was way out of date, or competitors had come along and written something that was much better and that deserved to be ranked higher than my article. So here's what I did. I found articles on the site which were more than 12 months old. And I filtered these articles to find the ones which were getting less than 100 page views. So this said to me that these articles were either badly written or badly researched or just completely out of date. So I reviewed all of these articles manually and I asked myself, could the contents be updated or overhauled or refreshed in some way? So in some cases this meant taking a 1,000-word listicle and turning it into something much longer. In other cases, I found articles which covered the same topic more than once. So I combined these articles into one and redirected the article that got less traffic to the one that got more traffic. As part of this content pruning exercise, I also made sure that the older articles on my site were attributed to an author. And in some cases, because the author had moved on, I wasn't able to do this. So instead I attributed them to the editor for the site in question. Next up, I took the most important pages on my site and I plugged them into GT Metrics. This is basically a website that you can use to identify any site speed issues. And it presented me with a number of red flags. You see, one of the most important pages on my site that generates a lot of traffic had loads of images. But the problem is these images weren't sized for the web. They were way too big and the page was slow on mobile and losing rankings as a result. So I took out all of the old images, created new ones and compressed them for the web, and then with the help of a virtual assistant, re-added them to the article in question. Oh, and if I had changed a significant portion of an article, for example adding new images or adding new content, I reset the publication date. However, I did not change the URL. So this would say to Google that this was a new article with new content, but I wouldn't lose all of those links to the old URL. Next up, I reviewed my keyword strategy for the site. Now, I usually go after competitive keywords. These keywords can be great if I rank for them, because I'll get lots of juicy search traffic which generates ad revenue for me. The problem is I'm not going to rank for all of these competitive keywords, because lots of other websites want to do just that. So I started to go after keywords that had a little less search volume and much less competition. And because I did this, I stood a much better chance of ranking for these articles. However, because there was less competition for these articles, I didn't have to update them as frequently, because other competitors were not doing the same. So if you need help finding keywords that have less competition and a little less search volume, I recommend using a good keyword research tool that specializes in this exact method. The tools I used are Keyword Chef and Lowfruits. While reviewing articles on my site, I said to myself, maybe I'm too dependent on SEO search traffic. So I started to look for other traffic sources. Now, I've grown an email list for years, and this is great for getting traffic each week. However, I wanted to see what else I could do. So I applied for Google News, and to my surprise, the site was accepted. And now when I publish an article that's related to something new happening in the writing world, there's a good chance my site will appear in Google News. And I also applied to Google Discover. Google Discover is a great way of getting social traffic. Now, there are specific guidelines about how to format your articles and images. In other words, they like big images that are sized correctly for the web and listicles. So I turned these guidelines into a checklist and I gave them to a team member to work on. She overhauled a number of articles on the site and I started to get some juicy revenue generating traffic from Google Discover as well. I also zoomed out a little. You see, it wasn't pleasant to log into Google Analytics and see a 30+% dip in traffic month over month. So I changed the view to look year over year, and traffic was still up year over year for my site. So this said to me that my keyword strategy for the site, or my content strategy, was still working. So I continued to execute on it. Perhaps this was just a dip. After all, if you take the name or URL for any big site, plug it into a keyword research tool, you'll often see dips and crests in their traffic. So don't let this deter you. Now, it took me a couple of months to make all of these changes to my site. There were a number of other little things that I did as well. And after about 3 or 4 months, my site quickly recovered from the 30% traffic dip. And now it's doing better than ever. I'm still continuing to publish content, but I've also documented procedures for many of the strategies that I implemented. And I'm working with team members to make sure we follow these. So I guess in a way, the 30% dip was a blessing in disguise, because it helped me improve the quality of content on my site, which can only be good for readers. What tactics would you like me to cover in more detail? Have you experienced a website traffic dip with your site? Let me know in the comment section below.